Dein Bruder kommt heute.
Ich weiß.
When things seem too normal, suspect three things. 1. Being normal. 2. Everything. And yourself.
Du hast 40.
The film is divided into three parts. The first two, 1987 and 1988, each depict a day in the family's life, showing their daily activities in detail. It conveys their discomfort with the sterile routines of modern society. Toward the beginning of each part, there is a voiceover of the wife reading a letter to the husband's parents informing them of his success at work. Many of the activities in the two parts are the same. The third part, 1989, begins with the family departing from the grandparents' home after a visit. The husband then narrates a letter, written the next day, informing them that he and his wife have resigned from their jobs and decided to leave. It plays over clips of them quitting, closing their bank account, telling the bank clerk they are emigrating to Australia, selling their car, and buying a large variety of cutting tools. He then says it was a very hard decision whether or not to take their daughter Eva with them, but they decided to do so after she said she was not afraid of death. The family eats a luxurious meal and then systematically destroys every possession in the house, but in an automatic and passionless manner, with barely any speaking, as are almost all of their actions in the movie. They rip up all of their money and flush it down the toilet. The only emotion shown is when George shatters their large fish tank and his daughter screams and cries hysterically. Finally, they commit suicide by overdosing on pills dissolved in water, first Eva, then Anna, and finally George, who vomits up the liquid and must resort to injecting himself. Just before he dies, George methodically writes the names, date, and time of death of all three family members on the wall, providing a question mark for his own time of death. An envelope addressed to George's parents is taped to the door. At the end of the film, text says that, despite the suicide note, George's parents thought it may have been a homicide and a police investigation was conducted. No evidence of murder was found. Michael Hanke's stunning, challenging, and horrifying picture is about the collective suicide of a young and seemingly regular family. This is the most basic explanation for the film.
Und aus Angst, Georg könne ihn aus seinem Sessel verdrängen, dem Armen auf jede erdenkliche.
Join me on the Unique Perspective YouTube channel for a more in-depth discussion of the Seventh Continent movie. It follows the last years of one Austrian family, who suddenly decide to destroy themselves without any apparent reason. Heavy, tragic subject matter and an artistic approach at executing it with the atmosphere being palpably depressing and undeniably impressive. The film's plan isn't promptly clear, but the non-attendance of any self-evident reason for the family's extreme despair is part of what gives this film its obliterating impact. Its tact and insights, additionally its hesitance and separation, make it a stunning and powerful articulation approximately at our times. We can see immediately away that we aren't seeing the complete picture. This subjective framing and shooting manner leaves a lot to the imagination. It's not only that the tale begins accelerating in such a manner that it's hard to grasp why the people do what they do, but even when we see this middle-class family, we seldom see them clearly.
Sei wieder nach Moskau dirigiert worden. Auch kursieren Gerüchte, dass sich an Bord der Idiot...
Und hopp, 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 und hopp.
Because they are dissatisfied, we immediately recognize that something is off. In close-ups, We see how they go about their daily lives and see things and places we'll see again and again throughout the movie. We see the world around them, but we never really get a clear picture of it. What drives a man to live on even during times of extreme difficulties and trouble? Where does this fervor for continuing and surviving come from? An old Eastern poet writes, "If someone were to question me one day, what is your goal in life? I'm telling you this because I'm terrified of dying, and I can't live without life." But what if we don't have a fear of dying? Each of us can give a thorough list of reasons why individuals commit suicide if asked. Which item on our list is described as useless or even having no reason? When Sisyphus was continuously moving that fabled stone, did he ever consider dying? The Seventh Continent, a film by Michael Haneke, is one of those peculiar films. The Seventh Continent is an adventure based on the same terms as above. Such a particular subject deserves a special narrative. Haneke doesn't typically have a non-weird movie. For the first 30 minutes of the movie, for instance, none of the primary actors are seen. The beginning of the movie is unusual, but the ending is many strangers. What about the Seventh Continent, though? Australia. The location where the family should go to begin a new life. A far-off location that appears in the movie and on the poster in many dreamy and hazy forms. Now, is this the last location to travel to this last refuge? One of the most frightful films in contemporary cinema is this one. Naturally, there are no violent scenes in the film. This anxiety is elsewhere. Haneke claims that the scene in which the main character flushes his money down the toilet represents the height of violence in the modern world, removing the possibility of a world centered on the money. I could talk a lot about this movie without affecting how enjoyable it is to watch. The independent and art cinema of Europe produced this film, which is not regarded as a good option for enjoyment. I just mentioned how peculiar everything in this work is, so now consider the fact that the movie is based entirely on a real incident.